Hey everyone, it's your girl Shantell. Thanks so much for spending some time with me. And today we're talking about some UFC sort of gossip. And recently, Joe Rogan on his infamous podcast basically said that, if you lock Tyson Fury and John Jones in a room together, of course, my money is going to be on John Jones, like wholeheartedly. And Tyson would have to, really get a good punch in, but I don't think that he'd be able to overcome Jones. And maybe it seemed to, strike a bit of a nerve with Fury, and he responded. There's a little bit back and forth. And John Jones was basically like, well, sure, in your boxing ring, like, you're king, but like step into the cage, whatever. Now, this is an interesting conversation because there's a broader conversation about should boxers move into the UFC, and within that, should Tyson Fury go on to move into the UFC, or into MMA more broadly. And I didn't really care for kind of the idea that, if you put Tyson Fury in a room with John Jones, that, my money's on John. It's like, yeah, of course. If you put a tiger into water with a shark, my money's on the shark. It's just like two very different sort of like sports. And so I think the argument is a bit null, to be honest. Maybe a bit simple. But there's the overarching point of what does it look like for a boxer to come over into MMA, and like under what circumstances would that make sense? This is also kind of with the point that like Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury, have been going back and forth and, wanting to fight. Francis was also interested in fighting Wilder, and Wilder has even made the claim that, he's open to coming over into the MMA world. So that's sort of the backdrop of all of this happening. It's like I don't really see a world now, at least with both of these men basically at the top and height of their career for this to make sense, like in this moment, unless something changes. Because Tyson Fury, he's 33-0 in one draw. John, of course, like 27-1. And we all know the one was pretty controversial anyway. So you have these two, top creme de la creme sort of like athletes that it wouldn't truly, at least in my view, like make sense for them right now to say, well, yeah, let's fight each other. These are both sports where folks are really lamented and put into the upper echelons of their sport by being undefeatable, by taking, down the biggest people in their respective fields. And so to potentially put that at risk doesn't really make sense to me at this point, to potentially like tarnish what you're doing. Now, if, for example, you're like, well, I'm at the end of the road, I want to get a big payday, for some reason, maybe there's some, cross collaboration that we could do between boxing and MMA, like that could make sense. I still think it's a bit of a leap for a boxer to come into MMA. And of course, with heavyweight, like there's so much about, the striking itself, but it still seems a bit of a reach that like someone who spent their entire career boxing for 30, at this point you're 30 plus years, maybe by the time they fight they'd be mid 30s, that you would now spend a year, 2 years, maybe more, trying to develop like all the technique you would use that you would need to even fight against anyone in the UFC, much less someone of the caliber of John Jones, who many consider the greatest of all time. So I don't really see a world in which like it honestly would make sense for Tyson to ever fight John. And I don't really see a world in which it makes sense for John to fight Tyson either in sort of like the boxing avenue. Because if you're thinking about it, it's like the reason why everyone or many people wanted to see Francis fight a Tyson Fury or a Wilder is because of that threat of that knockout power for Francis. That's not the case with John Jones. Like, yes, he's a striker. He finds really inventive ways with elbows and things like that. But no one is saying that John is such a powerful striker that he could potentially take out the likes of Tyson Fury. And I'm pretty sure he knows that, which is why he was giving, Tyson his respect in the ring. So that to me is really just a case of like, keep the forces separate, and you be king of your domain and I'm king of my domain, and like the two shall never meet.